All right, we are back with the Lead Now podcast. My name is Ashleigh. I am the internship director, and I have two really cool people here with me. One's name is Haley, and then one's Joey. Haley, why don't you start by telling us 3 fun facts about you? There's a lot.
I am a Zumba instructor. I like dogs.
She does love dogs. She's very, very good to my dogs.
And
this is good.
I like pasta.
Pasta. What's your favorite kind of pasta?
Alfredo. Chicken Alfredo.
It's a good choice.
That is a good choice.
Good choice.
Good choice. Joey, tell us 3 fun facts about you. Sorry, I'm a little tongue-tied today, apparently.
Let's see. Kind of like Haley, I'm also in the fitness industry, so I am a personal trainer too. It's the second thing. I play guitar and trumpet and piano, so like music. And what's the third one? What's something weird? I like to cook. It's fun.
Yeah, I have noticed throughout the internship program, Joey really loves to cook. Haley, name the things. I can't even remember everything that Joey has brought. One thing you did bring one time was mac and cheese with bacon in it.
Oh, that was so good.
That was beautiful.
That was bomb.
That was beautiful.
That was a good day. Everybody brought
really
good food
good.
that day. So
Yeah, it was a fun time. So we're just going to dive straight into the topic today, and the topic is set the tone. We've talked about this a lot throughout the internship program, and a few weeks ago, you guys and myself and a few other interns, Danielle, Hannah, and I think that was it. We all went to Passion City Church. We experienced a night that was really cool. It was funny because we just wanted to have an outing, and we decided we were just going to go do that because it was Sunday and there's not very much to do in Locust Grove, Georgia. So we said, we'll just go to Atlanta and experience that. And you guys, you thought that I planned the night because what did they talk about that night?
Leadership.
How ironic. So all of them were like, Ashleigh, you had to have planned this. I promise I didn't.
I still think she did.
yeah,
I did not plan it.
it's a plot.
Because I totally sit on their staff meetings and stuff. No, I didn't plan it. But some really cool things that they talked about were just excellence and what that looks like in ministry, outside of ministry, in their personal lives. What are some things that stood out to you guys that night?
I think one of the big things is, so there was a lot of people there that were arguably very, very, very successful in whatever their given field was. I think there was a couple that were famous through communications and broadcasting and sports, and some of them were project developers for community project developers, and they've all, throughout the entire conversation, they kind of all talked in a way that when they are at this point in success, but they emphasize this point of keeping yourself engaged in your leadership abilities, even when you're not given that platform to speak from. Because a lot of these people, they went, a lot of them went straight into their platform, and some of them had to grind to get up there. But the biggest important thing that I think that they kept talking about was just keeping consistency in your behavior and working on yourself and working on your character before you get to that point in having that sort of platform to reach out to others and to make that difference. And I think that was a really big takeaway for me.
Yeah, it was really neat to listen to all of the different backgrounds. For those of you who obviously weren't there, the people that were there were everything from basketball players to people who owned small restaurants, and what were the other things? Oh, Kristen Ledlow, I think that's her name. She was there. She's really involved in the NBA, and they are just really high in their influence and what they're able to accomplish and what they have been accomplishing. And Haley, what are some things that stood out to you while you were there?
I really liked when Maya Moore spoke, and how she was telling us her success in basketball, but also that she was going to take a season off to do what God told her to do. And I think it was, she was going into ministry, and just hearing how, her passion is basketball, obviously, but she has a greater calling and that she is pursuing that, and that she's going with what God told her to do.
And something that I love that you talked about just now, but also what she hinted at, you kind of hinted at that she knows she's good at basketball. She did that for a very long time. And she also said that night, she said, I got to quit because I'm excellent. Like, I got to do that. And I was like, wow, that's a really powerful thing to say. When you guys heard her say that, what were some thoughts that came to your mind? And it doesn't have to just, I guess, be in relation to her and her story, but just in your personal lives, how you view excellence, maybe what we could do better in our personal lives, and what we've kind of, I guess, negotiated when it comes to excellence and put on the back burner.
I guess the biggest thing in terms of like being excellent, and it was like a common theme amongst what a lot of them talked about, was just being like intentional with things. Like, you might not have the fame and the fortune and everything that you currently have, or that they have, but like just being intentional about your daily walk, your daily walk with Christ, your daily walk with how you treat people, how you push yourself, your goals, where do you see yourself in the future. And like, there's just this concept behind keeping that consistency too, with the intentionality. And I think that's what produces excellence, is once we're intentional and we're consistent, then people actually start to notice those types of things in our lives. So I think those are probably two of the biggest things that I would say we need to do if we're running to create excellence in our lives.
And consistency requires more than like 2 weeks, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And something that I've noticed with our generation, because all of us at this table are between the ages of 18 to 30, and something that I've noticed is us being so disturbed and annoyed with the process that it takes to become excellent. There's a process behind excellence, and it doesn't just happen overnight. And so today I really want to dive into the topic of setting the tone and what that looks like, because a lot of people see excellence and they expect to rise straight there and expect to be in that place and be like, okay, so this is what I want to do. And then when, Joey, you can relate to this, when something doesn't happen, or when a door doesn't open, we're like, crap, like, who am I? Or what do I do now? So do y'all have any experiences at all where, or maybe it's a season you're walking through right now where you're like, God, I have no clue what's next?
Yeah, every day I wake up.
Yeah, I was going to say, it's funny that you say that, because, I mean, obviously we had a conversation earlier, but Lead Now is ending in a month or two?
Don't speak that. I think it's like 2 months. Don't say
2 months. And I'm in a season of life right now where I'm going back and forth on, do I go back to school, or do I continue and go to another program? I don't know. It's a lot, but it's like I'm lost, really, and I don't really know where I'm going and what I want to do. So it makes me feel like, okay, you have 2 months. You need to pick you need to find out what you're going to do now, because, I mean, after the internship is over, you're going to be working, and that's about it.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. And I really relate to that too, because being, in my early 20s, it's just, I feel like there's this time crunch to get to that point of excellence, soon into my life. Because it's like, all right, I've been, on the grind of school since, elementary school. I made it all the way through elementary, made it all the way through middle, made it all the way through college. Yeah. And then like life kind of just, I was expecting to go straight into graduate school, and life hit a halt right at that. So I haven't been able to make it into graduate school yet. And that's really put a damper on like, all right, so what do I do now? Do I continue to try to pursue the graduate school? Do I continue to try to pursue a different career path from what I originally looked at? Do I build my skills that I have? Do I just sit here and wait on the opportunity to arise? It's hard to be in that middle ground where you just feel stuck. Mm-hmm. And yeah, that's where I've been feeling lately.
Yeah, I think too. So for those of you who are listening who know about the Enneagram, if you don't, you will soon, and we will make sure that we have a podcast explaining all of its goodness. But you guys are both 6s on the Enneagram, and you both desire security and stability, and you want consistency in your life, whether that's financially or just knowing what your next step is. And so I'm sure that this season is a season of trust, because in a world where you can literally get on Instagram and you can see everyone else's excellence, and in this season, like, your excellence looks different than theirs. Your excellence is just being still and being like, okay, God, what does this look like? So we talked about trust is hard. The process is hard. So what do you feel like God is, I guess, challenging you or encouraging you to do in the process of being still?
Literally listening to him in silence, just being silent. And for those who don't know me, I have a hard time sitting in just silence.
She's not kidding.
And it's literally going to take that and everything in me not to, pick up my phone, listen to music, or distract myself, but literally just be still and listen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, for me, I think it's more of a it's really onto that whole sit and listen, but it's also a learn to know, I guess, more of who God is. And it's realizing that my plans aren't always on top priority for his will for my life. And it's really causing me to really lean into his goodness. That's really been one thing that I've been focused on lately, is just like knowing God's goodness and knowing his provision, regardless of, where I'm at in life, and one thing that's kind of helped me, and I think I actually heard this from another podcast recently, was that, and it was from another 6 that I was listening to. And they said, if you looked at everything and you looked at every single worst case scenario in your life and you lost everything, what would you be left with? And you have to answer that question, that it'd be God. And you're like, all right, is God still good in those things? And of course he is. And so that's really what's been reassuring to me is, regardless of if I never make it to the goals that I had set out for my life or the plans that I wanted, or reach that level of excellence that I wanted in my life and security, just to lean in and still know that God's good.
Yeah, that's good. In a world where excellence looks a certain way, it can be challenging when God's like, no, this is what excellent looks like to me. And it kind of takes us back, because whether it's like him pushing us into an opportunity or him revealing a new gift set or a new talent, and it's like, whoa, this is new. This is not what I expected. I know specifically for you two, like Haley, you have found out that you love pouring into the next generation. You've always loved students, but you didn't realize that that's how much you loved it. Joey, you were in the medical field, and you still are. You still do that stuff. But I think you're finding out you have different things to offer the world, and you both have so many things in store for you. And it's almost daunting to realize that you have more capabilities, because it makes you have more options to choose from.
Yeah.
It makes it even more difficult. So I want to kind of talk about that in a world where there's so many options. How do we decipher which one's the best one?
That's all. I mean, I'm really struggling with that question.
Yeah, I think
now.
we all are.
It's just sitting there and knowing how many different, it's like looking at, roots on a tree, where you see, it's like, all right, up to this point, I've had pretty straight shot. And then now all of a sudden I have all these branches that are just going in who knows how many directions, and it can go backwards and go forward and go up and it can go down. But like just trying to figure out, like, all right, what's the next step? What's that thing that I need to do that could possibly change, something for the rest of my life? And that's a daunting task, because you're just sitting there and you're like, oh man, if I make any decision right now, it could just drastically change whatever happens in the future.
Yeah.
And for someone who's really one of my basic needs in life is security, it's, not having that security of knowing what's next is really, really hard to deal with.
Yeah, I think in those times too, we have to lean in. And this is the thing, growing up, and you guys speak into this for sure. if you feel the need to, but growing up in church, you hear the word trust a lot. It's like, trust God, trust God, trust God. But when you get into adulthood, you actually learn what trust means. In high school, it's easy to be like, yeah, I trust her. And it's like, no, you don't. It's fine. But trust is such a difficult concept to actually act out. It's that whole thing that people say that's a long way from your head to your heart. Like, I know God's good, and I know that he loves me, and I know he's kind. But sometimes I'm like, God, like, why? Why would you do this if you're kind? Or why would you do this if you're good? And that's definitely the enemy. And I think we have to be a generation who's willing to admit that stuff, because the next generation and the generation before us has either suppressed it, they haven't admitted it because they felt like it was wrong to be honest about that. And so I think one thing we can do right now, even though there's so many opportunities, even though some of us may not even have any, and we're like, I have no clue what this looks like for me. And regardless of our situation, one thing we can do right now that is not being done, regardless of where we at in our, work field or whatever you feel like your calling may be, regardless of that, one thing we can do right now is set the tone in our churches, in our schools, or even in the work field, wherever you're working is setting the tone. And we have done, I think, such a poor job of that lately. And, millennials will get a rep. They have a rep, let's be real. They're lazy. They don't, they're scattered. They don't work hard enough. They expect you to do things for them. I would argue that that's not true. And I would argue that most millennials actually do want to do more. They just don't know how to do it. And I just want to talk about some things that we could do to set the tone in our churches. So do you guys have any ideas of some things that we could do right now as millennials to set the tone?
I think it's just as simple as, if you see the trash overflowing, pick it up, take the trash out, or even, going and having conversation with not just your friends, but other people, branch out, make small talk, because you never know. I mean, small things like that go a long way.
Yeah.
So
that's good. I think, obviously, this is the thing. For so long, specifically people in church, have just bypassed people, and they're like, oh, they're fine, they're by themselves. But there's so much power in being the first one and putting our fear aside, because not everyone's naturally extroverted. Not everyone's able to be like, hey, Alex, how are you doing? Like, that's not everyone's first go-to. That's not in people's nature. Yeah. But to be willing to put our own desires or even just our flesh aside and to be like, okay, in this moment, what matters is me reaching out to this person and me showing them that I see you and I love you and I care about you. Because that's why we're here. But so often, what do we do instead? We love our friends and we'll hang out with our friends, which is good. Community is important. And when you're alone, a lot can happen. When you're alone, you don't have accountability, yada, yada. There's tons of stuff that can happen alone. But when we miss it, when we miss the point of why we're in church, because we're focused on ourselves, because we were all at that place where we walked into these doors and we just wanted to be noticed. So that's a huge thing. Joey, what about you? What are some ways?
To set the tone, I think kind of to tack on to what you were talking about, a big thing is initiative. Just taking that first step, that first step's always the hardest one in anything that people do. But just taking that first step to be the example, set the standard, set the tone. Especially because, one thing I really learned throughout this entire internship is that regardless of where you're at, you have influence on people, which in itself is what the definition of leadership kind of is having influence on people. And so regardless of what stage you're at in life, you have some sort of influence around a sphere of people that you're in connection with every single day. So if you are setting the tone, then people who are looking to you for guidance or for an example, or they value something about you, then what they'll do is once they see you set that tone, then they'll try to mirror you in a way that they start acting in that way too. And I think that's one of the biggest steps.
Which can also be very intimidating. So a lot of people run from setting the tone because, oh shoot, that setting the tone comes with weight. the weight of leadership. And then the weight of leadership comes with sacrifices. And so that's a whole nother podcast we could talk about. But that in itself is intimidating because you're like, shoot, if people start paying attention to me, I have to be consistent. I can't fail people, which isn't true. Like, we all fail. We all make mistakes. And that should be one thing you guys have learned throughout this program, is that we all fail, including your leaders. We all bleed, and we all have to be honest about when we're bleeding, and we all have to be honest about when we've done something stupid or when we didn't plan right or whatever that may look like. But it is daunting to think about that middle schooler, that high schooler is watching me and everything I do. And if I, even as simple as like, if I'm gossiping or if I'm talking bad about myself, they'll replicate that and they'll start doing that as well.
And I think that even to go even further with that a lot of times when we start feeling that way, like, oh, people are watching us, and we have to feel like we have to put on a show for them in order to keep up that. And that was another thing that we've just kind of learned within this internship, is it's not about like entertaining people, or it's not about just like putting on that facade for people. It's about thinking instead is like, how can I contribute to this person, or how can I grow this person, or what's something that I can give to this person out through conversation or through listening or through serving. And I think that's a big way also to set the tone, is just like to change your mindset from thinking about yourself to thinking about what can you give to other people.
I think a lot of times we get caught up in like the image of being a leader and the perfectionist part of it. Like, oh, I have to do this. I have to, like you were just saying, because we get caught up in the role, the title, right? It's like, I'm the internship director. Shoot, like, I can't ever make a mistake again in my life. Like, everyone's going to know about it. Or just as simple as being on social media and people following you. They see every last thing you do. But a lot of people in this new wave of leaders, unfortunately, they literally just want to be a leader because of the role or the title. And very, very rarely do they actually care about development. They just want that title. And then before you know it, the title becomes their identity and not actually Jesus. And it's actually really heartbreaking the amount of times that, not just in church, I mean, in the secular world and everything, people find their identity in what they do. And in the moment that has the potential to be ripped away from them, they're like, who am I? Like, who am I? And what we've been talking about as an internship group and as a staff is like, okay, Haley, Joey, Ashleigh, like, who are you without your competency? What's your character like? Who are you? And that's such a hard thing to dive into and to be honest about, because it may not be who you want to be. But that's the real question. And it's a massive one. I think another thing too is like, what are your motives in being a leader? Like, why do you want to be a leader? So tell me, why did you guys, like, what attracts you guys to being a leader?
I've always had just this drive to help people. And I feel like in certain places in life, like, you're limited by circumstance to a degree. So what I wanted to do is I always strived for that position, just be like, all right, I just want to prove myself, you know? Like, I have, like you were talking about, the competency. I have the competency to be able to lead people, but I don't have, like, the know-how of what to do once I'm there, you know? And I'd always struggled with not being able to reach that point of being given that position. So I kind of figured out I had to work up to that position. Like, some people are like naturally charismatic and like, oh yeah, you naturally have this inclination for people to follow you. So a leadership position, you know, a lot of people will be like, all right, that person needs that leadership position. Well, I'm not like that. So I've realized that if I wanted to be in a leadership position, I really had to work at it, and I had to do more than just know things. I had to know, or I had to be able to express myself in a way that people would want to follow me. And like, I guess the attractive thing about that is just like the more influence you feel like you have, the more reach that you feel like you can give to people. So if my drive to help people is able to reach further, then that fulfills that desire in me to reach even more people. So, it's like reaching people to reach people to reach people. It's like just like a snowball effect.
Yeah.
And so that was one thing that I was kind of attracted me about leadership.
I think it's like knowing the why behind the what. We say that all the time around here. Like, why do I want to be a leader? It's so that people can understand that they're gifted and that God's given them gifts, but they need to step into that. And the fun part about being a leader is I can say, Haley, hold my hand. Like, let's go do this together. But at some point, they have to do it themselves. And then the goal is to eventually get them to be like, Haley one day is like, oh, hey, middle schooler, hold my hand. And then you grow with them and you encourage them to do things. There's so many different forms of leadership that you can step into for sure. One thing, though, that we've talked about, and we talked about a little bit, is this terrible thing where people are so focused on their roles and their titles that they end up losing who they are in the process. So much so that when they actually get the role or the title, they're like, oh, I don't know what to do now. Like, what do I work for now? And now people are getting these roles and these titles, and they're really focused on building a platform. What are some things you guys have noticed? Haley, I want to hear from you. Some things you guys have noticed when it comes to building a platform, whether that's on social media. What do you think about that right now?
I think it's not necessary. Like, when people, like, no one has to know everything about your life. And people who have, cameras following them 24/7, I think that it's not attractive. And, as I said, it's just not necessary, really.
Yeah.
Like,
so as a millennial, like, how does that make you feel to see pastors or, I guess, leaders in the church having cameras follow them around everywhere they go?
It's like, what you said, it's the why behind the what. Are they really focused on the why, or are they focused on them? And it's kind of like, to me, I think it's selfish in a way, because everything's not about you. It's about God. So, I mean, if you are saying that you do this and this, like, why are you... It gives a perspective of everything's golden in your world, and all they see is the good things. And then when stuff goes bad, you're off the internet and no one can see it.
Yeah. Like, that goes back to what me and Joey were just talking about, the weight of leadership, right? Part of the weight is, crap, I need to evaluate what I post before I post it.
Yeah.
Because people are watching. When I go on vacation, and this might be like some things people disagree with, and that's fine, whatever. But like, when I go on vacation, I can't post all about my vacation because people that I lead, people that I minister to, haven't been able to go on vacation. And I'm not saying I wouldn't post a picture of my friend at the beach or whatever, but I'm not going to rent, not that I could actually afford this, but I'm not going to go to a 5-star hotel and take a picture of it and be like, look at me, like, I'm sipping on my latte in yada yada, like, New York City, baby. Like, I'm not going to do that, because I know the weight of my position, and I know how it's perceived. And it goes back to, people are watching you, and people, like you just said, you have influence somewhere, and you have to be so cautious, and you have to... We talk about stewarding money a lot and what that looks like, but there's also a portion where you need to steward your leadership well as well. That doesn't make sense.
And I fell into that trap too, of just wanting that platform. Like I said earlier, that's what was attracted to me about leadership, is the fact of you have that platform to influence people. And I was like, well, and kind of in a selfish way, or it's like, it's like one of those like selfish, not selfish things. I was like, oh, if I had that platform, I'd be able to help more people.
Right.
And then you start getting like jealous of people. It's like, well, they got that platform and they're not helping anybody.
Yeah.
I was like, well, if I was there, it's like that whole, well, if I won the lottery, then I would be able to do this, and this. But I think a lot of it comes back to people just want to have a voice, and they want to be heard. But it goes back to what Haley just said, is what are their motivations? Is it about them, or is it about something bigger than them? Is it about glorifying God? Is it about glorifying is it about building up other people? Is it
Yeah.
about creating more leaders? And I think that's the thing that a lot of people, especially in our generation, need to understand. It's not just about you. It's not about like what you can get out of it. It's about what you can give to other people. And you can do that at any phase, regardless if you have a platform or not.
Yeah. And that's my biggest fear. Like, and there's so much grace for all of these people who are doing this stuff. And we obviously as Christians need to assume the best about people. And so we assume that their why is in the right place. But also you have to be so careful because there's a fine line where your identity gets caught up in that. And you're like, crap, I'm losing followers, or what's wrong with me? Or like, am I not posting enough content? Or does this not, my picture's not good enough? I mean, there are people literally who have photographers follow them around and will take a picture and post it on their social media throughout the week. And if they don't get enough likes, it like literally destroys them. We went to Catalyst one day last year and Craig Rochelle said this. He said, I anticipate that in 3 to 5 years, he said that social media will be non-existent. And I was like, that's a stretch. We'll see. But part of me was like, that's going to really, really stink for people who've built their platforms on social media and it's all gone within seconds. Who their friend groups, who all that stuff is based around social media. And the reason he said that was because studies have shown that depression, loneliness, anxiety, all of that, a lot of it's rooted in the fact that social media exists. And so he thinks that people are going to get so fed up and just like delete it all. But we definitely have to be careful because we cannot get to the point to where we think that we control our own lives and that we create platforms. And Instagram is a form of a platform, but even just as simple as like an actual platform, like we didn't put ourselves there. God did, and God allowed those opportunities before us. We're here to empower people, not to be empowered. So back to what you said, like, why do I want to be on stage? Why do I want to have followers on Instagram? Is it so people can be like, oh, Haley, you're awesome, or Joey, that was amazing, or whatever that looks like? Or is it, no, the mission is Christ, and the mission is for people to reach their full potential in Jesus, and that's why I'm doing this. So, personally in your own lives, what are some ways that you can start setting the tone right now?
I think for me, instead of going to my friend group and my clique that I'm normally around on Sundays or just whenever throughout the week, go and initiate the conversation with someone that I don't know or I see standing by themselves, and not be so introverted.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm kind of on that too. I guess I would rephrase it in a way of I need to stop living in my own head and I need to start living more outwardly. I have a tendency of just like sitting there and thinking about things like, oh, this is probably what's going to happen. And, like if I go over and talk to this person, like, oh, it's just going to be an awkward conversation. And then I just kind of don't make a decision. I just stay there in my nice little apathetic comfort zone. But I think the biggest thing is just, we talked earlier about initiative and like having drive. I think those are like really important things for me to do right now, is just to kind of put myself out there more, look for opportunities to set the tone, because like people are already watching, but where can I be that first person to step up and take a role where no one else will? Where can I step up and do a task that nobody else wants to do? Just trying to be observant of those situations, and then instead of just thinking about doing them or thinking about not doing them or what could happen, what won't happen, what will happen, just doing it and doing the old Nike thing. Just do it.
Just do it. No, what I love about the things that you guys both just said was, and we'll wrap it up here, but just that your mindset, if you really, what it all boils down to when it comes to setting the tone is your mindset and how you approach life. So if my mindset is set on, like, I don't belong to my past, I'm renewed in Christ, and whether that looks like me even just thinking poorly of myself or actual decisions, whatever that may be, that all needs to go to the side. And what I need to focus on is that God loves me. I'm here for a reason. And that this person next to me is loved as well, and they're here for a reason. And everything else doesn't matter. Like setting the tone it all comes down to your mind, whether that looks like loving people well, or whether it looks like seeing the trash that just needs to be taken out, or going to the front of the auditorium and setting the tone for what worship looks like, praying for people. We've gotten so afraid of doing that stuff publicly, but it's time that we stop being afraid and living in fear of what people will think of us. So, I guess what I would just love to leave you guys with is, what are ways that you can set the tone, and what are ways that we can really change the way that Christian culture is going for millennials, and challenge millennials to step up and lead in a way that's never been led before. So, hey guys, thank you so much for joining us today. I know we talked about multiple things, but what it all boiled down to is just setting the tone and what that looks like in our daily lives. These interns are awesome, and they've done an incredible job, and they are really displaying what it looks like to set the tone, whether that is what they talked about, taking out the trash, or praying for people, or just simply talking to someone new who it may be their first time at church. I'm super proud of them, and I'm sad to know that their time is coming to an end at Lead Now. But one exciting thing is that in August, year 3 of Lead Now starts. And if you would like to apply, if you're 18 to 30 years old, you can apply at www.leadnow.today. So we would love to have you guys. And if you have any questions at all, you can go follow us on all of our social media platforms at leadnow.today. And we will get back to you as soon as possible. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for tuning in.